The warrior's curse. It was said that a great warrior once walked through the village, his shadow larger than most men. But that wasn't what made him feared. No, it was his strength, the power in his hands, and his ruthless nature. They called him Obasi. No man in the village was brave enough to challenge him, and many said he was the one who would win the hand of the king's beautiful daughter, Princess Ola. But that wasn't what truly mattered. The most uncertain part of this story. Obasi's end, the day he met his doom. Now, let me tell you how it all started. In a small peaceful village, the king was a man of great honor. He ruled with wisdom, but his heart was heavy. There had always been conflict with a neighboring village. Rivalries, fights, and the clash of egos had kept both villages in constant war for as long as anyone could remember. The king of our village had lost many battles, but he never gave up because his people needed him. One day, the king called for a great battle. He drew a line in the sand and declared that whoever returned from the battlefield with the head of the enemy king would win the greatest prize, the hand of his daughter, Princess Ola, the most beautiful woman in the land. Every young man in the village wanted to win her heart, but none was able to. Obasi was the strongest, the fiercest, and the one everyone thought would win. But it wasn't him who won the battlefield. Obasi, the one who was known as the greatest among them, only focused on the part of the battlefield that will fetch him a prize. He had always wished to make the most beautiful lady of the land, Princess Ola, his wife. In fact, taking Princess Ola in as a wife had become the dream of most men in our village. Moreover, her beauty became the topic for the young men in our village. Even some elders wished to take her in as a second or third wife. It was a long and a tough battle. It paused for a period and continued since the aim was not achieved. There was another man in the village. A simple hunter named Obina. He was not strong like Obasi, nor was he feared. In fact, most people didn't even think much of him. He spent his days hunting in the forest, alone, away from the battles and noise of the village. But one day, against all odds, Obina returned from the battlefield with the head of the enemy king. The whole village got surprised over Obina's victory because none of the villagers thought of Obina winning such a great prize. The king was overjoyed and honored Obina with the hand of Princess Ola. Obasi could not raise his head that day. His face was buried to the ground whilst the villagers mocked him silently, because of the pride he had in himself of winning the princess. The village celebrated, and the story of the humble hunter who outsmarted the great warrior spread far and wide. Obasi, the mighty warrior, could not bear it. He was consumed with jealousy, anger, and bitterness. He felt humiliated. How could a poor hunter, who was no match for him, win the prize that was meant for a warrior of his stature? Obasi could not accept it. His pride was wounded, and his heart was filled with hatred. What do you think will be his next action? Will he move away from the village, to avoid all the mockery, or what? All of a sudden Obasi decided to take the bull by the horns. One day, when Obina went into the forest to hunt, Obasi followed him secretly. At a point, Obina felt something strange and paused for a while, but all he heard was the sound of the birds singing on tall trees in the forest. Obasi waited for the right moment, and when Obina was deep in the woods, he attacked. The great warrior struck the hunter down with his sword. He believed that by killing Obina, he would have his revenge and everything would go back to the way it should have been. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. On his way back to the village, Obasi felt something strange. The air grew thick, and a dark feeling washed over him. He walked cautiously, unaware that in the distance, a large lion was stalking him. The king of the jungle, silent and swift, lunged at Obasi before he could even react. The mighty warrior, the one who had never been defeated by man, was no match for the deadly claws and teeth of the deadly animal. Obasi was killed in an instant by the deadly lion. When the villagers found out, they could hardly believe it. The once feared warrior, who had struck terror into the heart of so many, had been taken by a wild animal. It was a cruel twist of fate. And so, the story of Obasi, the great warrior who let his jealousy and pride destroy him, was passed down from generation to generation. As for Obinna, though he had lost his life in the forest, the memory of his humble bravery remained. Princess Ola never forgot him, and the village too honored the man who had been brave enough to fight for what was right. And that's how the story of the king, his daughter, the mighty warrior, and the humble hunter was told. A reminder that sometimes, strength is not enough, and pride can lead even the greatest of men to their doom.